communities and aid in their transformations. Even INFOWARS Nightly News Director Rob Dew has been using Oxy powder with incredible success.
Took it that first day, then I took it for 6 more days after that. 12 pounds melted off in about a week. I'd say a week, 7 days.
2015 can be different. Diet and exercise are important, but a lot of us have already tried that. Oxy powder flushes it out. Secure your Oxy powder at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139.
Well, in recent months in Ferguson and New York City and many other places, we've seen the government refuse to do very simple things that could have de-escalated tensions in many cases, choosing rather operations that would escalate tensions, that would increase the tension between black and white, between the community and the police. Now we have some more interesting data that comes out where the Justice Department actually helped to fund a video promoting cop killing. This is a story from the New American. It says Justice Department grants were linked to cop killing rap video. And of course, this is a video showing 2 black men holding a gun to the head of a white officer. And this rap video encouraged the killing of officers. This happened before the 2 officers were shot in New York City. And they point out here that it was revealed recently that the Department of Justice funded a community organization that was linked to this controversial rap music video that glorified the murder of New York City police officers. The group in question, the Bronx Defenders, received at least $1.5 million in U.S. taxpayer dollars from the Department of Justice, and they played a prominent role in the pro-cop killing music video. Now, they say the link between the Justice Department's funded organization and the glorification of violence against the police was first reported by the Heritage Foundation's Daily Signal news outlet on December 22nd, and it wasn't immediately clear whether the Bronx Defenders group featured in the video, along with staff attorneys for the organization, played a role in financing the violent film. But they say the organization has also received upwards of $40 million from New York City taxpayers in just the last 2 years. And so far, the Bronx Defenders have not replied to any requests for comment from any of the media as to this. That's just one example of how the government is directly involved in trying to escalate the tensions. And of course, we've seen this in the equipment and the training that comes out of Washington. And of course, this is coming out of Washington, out of the Department of Justice. And sadly, a lot of people are buying that message and acting upon it. We see some threats that surfaced in social media. This is a story out of Chicago. A quote-unquote warrior, that's the way he referred to himself, has been charged after threatening to kill, quote, cops and innocent white kids. This is the kind of hate that is being fostered. Now, he posted this message on Facebook about killing innocent white children and cops. They say photos of white children accompanied the threat made by Aries Wolfson, a convicted felon. He said that the streets would run red with blood. Now, what they found at the house where he was living was a .45 caliber pistol, had several rounds of ammunition, as well as a makeshift shooting gallery in the basement. Now, we know there have been other cases that have surfaced in the last year or so. Now, the woman who lives there said that that gun belonged to her. It wasn't his gun. Whether or not that's the case, we have seen targets of, I would say, innocent people being used not by someone who's threatening to kill cops and innocent white kids, but used to train our police. That was Homeland Security. And there are no hesitation targets. Remember that? It showed pictures of children, showed a picture of a pregnant woman, showed a picture of an elderly man. What was their crime? They were holding guns, presumably because they were maybe startled by a no-knock SWAT team raid. There's been a lot of people who have been killed in that kind of operation. Many times it was a house where there was no reason for the police to be there. It was a mistaken house, a mistaken identity. And of course, the people who were living in the home were certainly not expecting the police to raid them. They thought it was a home invasion, and they were killed because they had been trained, the police had been trained not to hesitate. This is the kind of escalation on both sides of this that is so dangerous. Training the police that they're at war with everybody, that they're not going to be able to go home to their family unless they shoot first, shoot without hesitation, and continue to fire. And of course, it's a message that's being picked up by groups that are funded by our own Department of Justice, a message sent to the black community that they should kill the cops. There's a way around this. This last New Year's Eve, we looked at a movie because we'd actually seen this movie before. It's a movie that came out in 2005. It's called, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Joy Noel. This is a story of 100 years ago. It was Christmas Eve in 1914, the beginning of World War I. And at one point, there's a lot of dispute as to how this actually started, but Christmas carols started being sung by one side. It was picked up on the other side of the trench, of course, the close trench warfare of World War I. They were in very close quarters, so one side began singing Christmas carols. They were joined by the other side, and before long, some brave individuals made some overtures and approached each other, and they had a truce. And that truce from a few areas spread to over 100,000 soldiers, stopping the fighting on Christmas Eve. The full extent of what happened wasn't really shown in the movie. They focused on a very small section, a very small number of characters, because, of course, in a movie, you want to make it personal. You want to have character development. But as this spread in reality, this involved more than 100,000 soldiers in a line that was about 450 miles long, as some of them started coming out and fraternizing with the other side and peacefully sharing what they had. That began to spread all along the line and lasted for about a day. That sin of fraternization made both sides very angry. Adolf Hitler spoke angrily about what happened, and of course the highest commanders made it very clear that was never to happen again. They were to go back and start fighting each other. And Ron Paul had an article about this because it was the 100th anniversary of that happening. He had an article called The Real Meaning of the 1914 Christmas Truce. He points out that while it was a joyous occasion for the soldiers, it was very dangerous for the political leadership on both sides. Such fraternization with the enemy, quote unquote, could not be tolerated by those who start the wars and keep them going. He said, earlier this month, soldiers from opposing sides in the Ukraine Civil War met in a similar way to facilitate the transfer of supplies and rotation of troops. And this is what they were reported to have said. One of them said, I think it's a war between brothers that nobody wants. The top brass should sort things out, and us, we're just soldiers who do what we're told. Now, he also points out in this article the quote that we've heard many times from Hermann Goering at the Nuremberg trials, saying that naturally, common people don't want war, neither in Russia, nor in England, nor in America, nor for that matter, in Germany. But then he went on to say, the people can always be brought back to the bidding of the leaders. That's very easy. All you have to do is tell them they're being attacked and denounce the pacifists for a lack of patriotism, exposing the country to danger. It works the same way in any country. This is what we need to stay focused on. We need to not let them scare us into shutting down the internet because of some pretended threats against a movie. And we need to not let them divide and conquer us into a race war in America that will be far more destructive to this country than even World War I or World War II were. Well, that's it for tonight's news.